Friends, good evening, and welcome to another edition of SPTV News Live. This being a late night edition, as it's currently 9:30 here in lovely Los Angeles, California. What time is it where you're at? Where are you at? And how the hell are you doing? Okay, so this is an update on the Bixler versus Scientology lawsuit. Now, as predicted in the very last video that we did on the Danny Masterson civil lawsuit, not that it's hard to predict, the cult is up to its usual shenanigans to try to kick as much sand in the face of both the plaintiffs, the judge, and the court system itself to prevent this from going forward. Now, a little bit of backstory. This civil case involves the three Jane Does that were in the Danny Masterson criminal trial, as well as one of the husbands of the Jane Doe named Cedric Bixler in a civil lawsuit. Now, what they're alleging is this was filed in 2019, and what they're alleging is that between 2016, when these ladies came forward, a couple of them, one had come forward much earlier to the LAPD, and they were investigating to see if they were going to bring Danny to trial. So from 2016, when that first happened, all the way up to present time, they are alleging fair game tactics. And we'll cover what fair game tactics what they are as we get into this. But that's the backstory. And like I said, as predicted in that video, they're going to do everything in their mother to prevent this from coming forward, to make it as hard on the plaintiffs and the court system itself so that it will never see the light of day. But this judge, and I think the court systems in general, not least because of the reporting from Tony Ortega, who we're going to be reading out some of today, as well as the SPTV community and the public awareness in general, kind of getting hip. This judge doesn't seem like they're going to be falling for the usual antics. And as more and more awareness is spread, and Scientology puts themselves on public display by this reporting and what they're doing in the court systems, it just not only makes them look bad, but it allows the justice system to proof itself up against tactics that have worked by Scientology almost always in the past. So let's call this shenanigans number 4, because this civil trial, the stay was removed about 3 weeks ago, despite Scientology's objections. That was shenanigans number 1, to be allowed to go forward, and it's scheduled currently for September 2025. So with that in mind, I can't go over the previous 3 shenanigans. Let me just show you a couple of videos here real quick, because we covered them in detail, and it's too much to try to summarize. But consider the shenanigans number 4. I'll link in the description box these 2 videos that will bring you up to speed on this case in general. And the first one is called Scientology's Desperate Attempt to Silence Jane Does in Danny Masterson's civil lawsuit, and Scientology lawyers bitch to judge again in Danny Masterson civil lawsuit. And this is the shenanigans number 4. Let me throw you guys over here in the chat. Always like to have you on this side. And like I said, they have about 2 years to bring this to trial. So can you imagine the number of shenanigans that they're going to actually try to pull? Just 3 weeks ago, this stay was lifted, and we're already on number 4. Scientology wants large portion of Bixler suit stricken even before new version arrives. Scientology's attorneys have thrown yet another curveball at Danny Masterson's victims, who are suing the That 70s Show actor and convicted serial rapist, as well as the cult of Scientology, for what they say has been years of harassment after coming forward to the LAPD with their allegations in 2016, as we just mentioned. So that lawsuit is known as Bixler versus Scientology, and it just recently got going again when Judge Upinder Kalra, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Kalra, lifted the stay that had kept the 2019 case dormant while Masterson went through 2 criminal trials. And as we know, that culminated with his conviction on May 31st, and he was sentenced to life in prison on September 7th. Again, they keep saying 30 years to life in prison. I don't know why. He got a life in prison sentence, and he has a possibility for parole in 25.5 years. Even with the sentencing accomplished, the cult still objected to the stay being lifted on the lawsuit, of course. And again, see the previous video for the shenanigans involving that, arguing in part that they had just learned that the plaintiffs are planning to file a new amended complaint, which will, we assume, of course, include updated allegations of intimidation and stalking, which have occurred in the last couple years, the aforementioned fair game that Scientology is famous for. So, we've been waiting eagerly to see what those new allegations will be. But even before the new amended complaint comes in, it'll be the second amended complaint in the case. Scientology, of course, has now filed a motion to strike large portions of material from the first amended complaint, and that was done all the way back in February 2020. So yes, more than 3 years after Masterson's victims filed their first updated complaint, alleging that Scientology has relied on its fair game policies to stalk them, hack their electronics. This is the part that really pisses me off. And even poison their pets, Scientology now suddenly has a lot of problems with what they're alleging. Now, their beef comes down to two categories of things that they don't like in the 2020 first amended complaint. And towards the end of this broadcast, we'll break down these 2 points a little bit more in case you don't understand the Scientology lingo / nomenclature. Stand by for a drink of water. So number one is all of the many references to Scientology's fair game policies, which cult founder L. Ron Hubbard established in order to give his followers free rein to, quote, destroy utterly people who have been designated as enemies of the church, also known as suppressive persons. And the second point being allegations about the rapes themselves and about how Masterson's victims, 3 of whom were Scientologists at the time of the sexual assaults, were under instructions by Scientology not to go to law enforcement and were punished by Scientology, quote, ethics officers for saying anything at all. And we've covered one of those ethics officers in detail named Julian Swartz. Again, I'll link it in the description box shortly after this live stream. So in regards to the second category of allegations, Scientology's attorneys are arguing that any references to what occurred while the Jane Does were still Scientologists must be thrown out because this lawsuit is only viable today because an appeals court found that the women could sue over their harassment as long as that harassment was going on after they had left the church. And that was overturned, by the way. If you remember, the Bixler lawsuit was forced into arbitration in December 2020 when the original judge, Judge Stephen Clefield, granted Scientology's argument that the women had signed contracts while they were Scientologists, which obligated them not to sue the church, but to take any grievances to Scientology's own internal religious arbitration. And again, we've covered that in the past. That is the equivalent of telling the plaintiffs to go fuck themselves, to go into the world within a world law of Scientology where they have all the cards and the person seeking justice just goes round and round in a merry-go-round, gets gaslit, and comes out saying, yeah, I'm sorry that I complained. I guess everything's fine. In other words, they don't get any justice. It's a total scam. And this is a major reason why Scientology's tax-exempt status, particularly in the U.S., needs to be taken away because they won't be able to hide behind this utter, what I consider bullshit, even though it's quote-unquote legalese. Okay, but in January 2022, a California appeals court reversed that ruling, thank God, saying that what the women were suing over, the stalking and intimidation that they've experienced in 2016, should not be held to the contracts they signed as Scientologists because they had all left the cult by then. So now, Scientology is asking that references to, for example, Jane Doe number 1 being told in 2003 that she couldn't go to the LAPD by the cult after her rape should not be allowed in the lawsuit because she was still a Scientologist then. You guys see how this works, right? And what they're arguing? If not, the previous 2 videos will go into more detail, but it's utterly ridiculous, yet sometimes the court will uphold these things. Hence, Scientology trying everything in their mother to throw sand in this case. So as for the references to fair game that the cult attorneys are asking to be stricken, they're arguing that even though these allegations are, of course, untrue, Scientology claims that Hubbard canceled the fair game policy in 1968. That's utter bullshit, by the way. Even if they were true, they involve internal church doctrine and therefore cannot be judged by a civil court of law. Scientology's ever dear First Amendment religious rights prevent that, they argue. And here's what the cult says. So, while all the allegations concerning the religious doctrine, beliefs, and practices of the Scientology cult are false, of course, the alleged existence of a church doctrine and the alleged commands of Scientology scripture concern religious conduct and raise ecclesiastical issues. Any attempt to prove such allegations would necessarily, quote, implicate resolution of ecclesiastical issues, and therefore, under the writ opinion, these allegations, it's probably right? Under the right opinion, whatever the hell that is, these allegations cannot form the basis of the plaintiff's claims. Basically, to summarize that, they're saying they were in the cult and therefore that needs to be stricken because since then they've left the cult. It's interesting to go through and see which lines from the 2020 First Amended complaint the cult attorneys want thrown out, but we have to wonder what the point of this exercise is when just a couple of weeks ago the same attorneys were whining that the lawsuit should be kept on ice because a second amended complaint is about to be filed, making the previous one irrelevant. The whole point of this, my friends, as you're going to see, is something called developed traffic. Here we go. We asked an attorney friend what he thought this was all about, and he answered Dev T. That's Scientology slang for wasting time, which is what this is all about, and they have policies to do so. And he explained that the cult will always look for any opportunity to clog the court docket with time-consuming nonsense that costs everyone time and money. Judge Kara set trial in the lawsuit, as we mentioned before, for September 2025, but Scientology has asked for a hearing to address their motion to strike on November 22nd. Just to let you know what the hell Dev T means in Scientology lingo, it comes from the Scientology term developed traffic, which means communication in a business that is disruptive because it's not routed properly, used as slang to mean any waste of time or effort, usually that is caused by someone. And I want to show you what they're actually alleging here. I'm sure most of you are up to speed on what Scientology fair game tactics are. They claim that they canceled them a long time ago, but they continue to this day. And in case you're not, like, what the hell is this suit all about? This is what they're saying actually happened. So, the term fair game is used to describe policies and practices carried out by the cult towards people and groups it perceives as its enemies. Cult founder L. Ron Hubbard established the policy in the 1950s in response to criticism from both within and outside his organization. L. Ron Hubbard could not stand criticism. Individuals or groups who are, quote, fair game are judged to be a threat to the cult and, according to the policy, can be punished and harassed using any and all means possible. You get that? Any and all means possible. In 1968, Hubbard officially canceled use of the term fair game because of negative PR it caused, although the cult's aggressive response to criticism most definitely continued. Applying the principles of fair game, Hubbard and his followers targeted many individuals, as well as government officials and agencies, including a program of covert and illegal infiltration, as most of you probably know, of the IRS and the United States government agencies during the 1970s. That's the infamous Snow White project. They also conducted private investigations, character assassinations, and legal action against the cult's critics in the media. The policy remains in effect and has been defended by the Church of Scientology as a core religious practice. Just wanted to say something regards that Operation Snow White. The CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency of America, said that Scientology's own intelligence branch, which is called the Office of Special Affairs, is better, more oiled, and more together than the fucking CIA itself. So, starting in the 1980s, for their major branch in Los Angeles, California, the Scientology organization largely switched from using church members and harassment campaigns to hiring private investigators, including former and current Los Angeles police officers. Again, how they get them in their pocket and do something called safe pointing has been covered in a previous video, and I'll link those in the description box. The reason seemed to be that this gave the cult a layer of protection in case embarrassing tactics were used and made public, and also to keep them from being responsible by having several layers of buffering so it never traces back to them. Quick background, cult founder L. Ron Hubbard said all opposition came from what he called SPs, or suppressive persons, which Scientologists claim are, quote, antisocial people who want to destroy anything that benefits humanity. In written policies dating from the mid-1950s, Hubbard told his followers to take a hard line against perceived opponents. That's an understatement. 1955, he wrote, quote, and here's the main point of all of this and why Scientology is doing what they're doing and why this is only shenanigans number 4 out of about 500 to come. Quote, the purpose of the suit is to harass and discourage rather than to win. The law can be used easily to harass, and enough harassment on somebody who is simply on the thin edge anyways. And what do you think this alleged fair gaming does to the victims over all these years? Who is simply on thin edge anyways, i.e. gaslit to hell and back, well knowing that he is not authorized, will generally be sufficient to cause his professional decease. If possible, of course, ruin them utterly. Now, it even gets more brutal than that, but I don't want to bore you with all the details. I'll leave a link in the description box to that wiki article so you can see that. But that's basically all I wanted to cover tonight, just to keep you up to date, because it's good to have reporting and a running record of this stuff. That's what I'm trying to do, at least on this channel, so that the more awareness that happens with what the cult does. And I would say Hubbard was tuned into this shit too, where the way the legal system is set up, if you have the money and the power, you can use it to harass, you can delay, and they use the system to their advantage. The more awareness, perhaps we can actually get some change in the laws, or at the very least, not least this judge that's overseeing this civil trial, they can get much up to speed and not fall for the cult bullshit tactics. So I'm going to fly through here real quick, my friends, and see if there's any question marks. See if you guys have any questions before we roll out. Julian Chemist, what's up, man? What if Julian Schwartz escaped tomorrow and wanted to start going on SPTT? I would love to interview him, because that guy was a prick in the cult to me, man, and I have a lot of things to ask him. Start going on SPTV. Should we let him tell his story, even though he's a monster? It's all so fucking creepy. Chemist, I don't think there's any way in hell Julian Schwartz is getting out, let alone coming on SPTV. I mean, I think he'd find himself behind bars before that, because, he's done some stuff where if and when the midget actually does get in handcuffs and taken to court, if that day ever comes, I imagine people like Julian Schwartz, the accomplices that covered up the Danny Masterson trial and all the other things from Lisa McPherson on, I don't think these people are going to want to come on SPTV. I think they're going to want to find a country to live in and hide out so they're not put behind bars. That's a great question, though. Julian Schwartz, in case you guys don't know, is the ethics officer, one of the ethics officer who told one of the Jane Does, we don't mention the word rape. All right. Any other? Okay, there's question marks. Thanks for doing that, guys, because it's really easy to actually find when you put those question marks up. Twisted, what's going down? Doug, will you be going to the protest on the 21st? I'm glad you brought that up, Twisted, because tomorrow we're going to do a video showing very recent protests in Los Angeles. There's a protest coming up at Celebrity Center here in Los Angeles, as well as a big event in East Grinstead at the UK headquarters called St. Hill, where I want to show you guys some of these demonstrations, what happens at these demonstrations, because Apostate Alex has arranged an event in the UK for never-in Scientologists and Scientologists to protest, but he left out a few things that are very important to know when going to the protest. I don't know if I'm going to that or not, my friend. It's between 1 and 4 p.m. If I'm around, if I'm not working, if I'm available, I will go there and I'll live stream the fucking thing. But I also know what the hell I'm getting into. I want to say something more about that in tomorrow's video. Any other questions before we roll out? I definitely have to find another system. Again, Nasty, you, sir, are a legendary auditor. Nasty Nathaniel has been keeping an eye on this cult for fucking years. He's super respectful and super effective on seeing if they pass their First Amendment. Basically, he just hangs out there and he'll engage with people and just make sure that he has the First Amendment right to audit them. Sometimes Scientology passes, sometimes they don't. But man, Nasty, I really loved watching you over all these years, man. I remember shaking in the corner, still deprogramming year after year after year. And I'd always watch your videos, man. And I was like, wow, the courage this guy has when I'm sitting here shaking in the corner. I just really got a lot of therapy, man, out of watching you deal with these freaks. So thank you for your service, sir. Anything else before we roll out, my friends? Okay, I was wondering, who are you guys and why are you guys up? So 11:30 p.m. with Rocket Out. We got 11:30 p.m. in Northern. I'm going to look like an idiot. Is that Minnesota, Chow? By the way, it's a quick story on Chow. I did an interview about an hour ago, and I tried to put on the community tab. I quickly erased it, so I don't know if any of you guys saw it. But I put on the community tab, hey, join us on this dude's YouTube channel because we're doing an interview. And it happened to be the link to actually go into the back room. So Chow got the notification right away, went into the back room, and just spontaneously joined in on the interview. And she was, how fun was that, Chow? She was fucking awesome, man. And we just had a great talk. I'll try to link that video to that interview too in the description box. Okay, my friends, I don't see any questions. Like I said, more to come tomorrow, at least one video. It's really cool hanging out with you guys kind of late at night here. And as usual, stay safe, try to stay sane in this crazy world, and most definitely don't join the cult of Scientology.
I found out long ago it's a long way down the holiday road. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Take a ride on the West Coast gig. Holiday road, holiday road, holiday road, holiday road, holiday road,
Welcome to Hollywood. What's your dream?
Some dreams come true, some don't. But keep on dreaming. This is Hollywood.